All right, let's move on to, we still have a lot to cover. So let's move on to barbecue at the big house. Folks, if you haven't seen this barbecue yet, you need to see this. So this is from Abigail O'Connor, who's the nutritionist. And look at the food here. Oh my God. Even the carrots have scorch marks. Oh.
Yeah. Let me make a quick point on the carrots because once in a while I like to find and go to Michelin star restaurants. That looks like a Michelin star restaurant carrot. It's got it's not just put on the grill. It looks like it might have a little glaze to it. That is high level restaurant stuff right there.
Yeah, that looks damn good. That is worlds different from last year's barbecue. And if anyone saw, the barbecue awards this year, I think Michigan came out on top. The losers this year was Oregon. If anyone saw those photos, we should have had those, John. But Oregon's photos were pretty funny this year. But yeah, no, Michigan hit this out the park, man. We're gonna have more on this as we get into the recruiting segment, but they did a great job.
Yeah. So just a kind of high level. In addition to the food, were there kind of some other pieces that were kind of improved on with Aaron Dunston coming into the picture, and you hear about anything else?
Yeah, well, for one, it was a 3-day event. Okay, so this used to be a 1-day event, so they've expanded it. Not only that, because the recruiting department has expanded, which we've talked about all summer. Nobody was left entertained, right? Everybody, like in the past, there were some, well, for one, they would keep the visitor list a little smaller, and two, there would be some recruits who felt like they didn't get enough attention. By all accounts, nobody felt that way. The food was amazing. The event was great. Some kids were there all 3 days. They just knocked it out of the park. I mean, the one unfortunate thing, which we're going to hit on later in the show, is the new locker rooms were not finished yet. So the recruits were not able to tour the new locker rooms, but because those became public, I think yesterday, Monday. So, outside of that, I mean, they did everything right. And it's again, when we've talked about this since the second week of official visits, Michigan's recruiting weekends are just on that next level. They're truly at an elite level right now in terms of just their entire presentation to these recruits, and they're just doing great, man. It's so good to see from where we were. Like, they've really picked it up. And shout out to Sharon Moore, because Sharon Moore and Sean McGee and everybody involved. Aaron Dunston. I mean, just crushing it right now.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about I'd like to get your kind of opinion on this, on what it means to have Hart to kind of recruiting that next class, and what that means to Michigan, to having Brady Hart there recruiting that next class. It didn't seem like anybody was kind of lonely and just like, okay, then nobody's paying attention to me kind of thing, especially with that the 2026 class, right? So
yeah, which we'll hit on that a little bit more, but to give a little summary, I mean, like, Brady Hart was a major factor at this event. And his entire reason for being there was to recruit for Michigan. He's not being recruited. He's already in. He's locked in. He wants to build a major class for 2026. But he wasn't just working on 2026. He also was working on 2025s. He was throwing with Andrew Marsh. So him and Andrew Marsh got to throw the ball around. They got to work out, stuff like that. And to anyone who missed our Andrew Marsh interview, we did an interview with Andrew Marsh last week. Go check that out. We uploaded it last Wednesday. He's legit. We're going to get more into Andrew Marsh as we go into the recruiting segment. But no, I mean, look, having Brady Hart in the fold, having him come up for these events on his dime, not only is Brady Hart doing a great job recruiting all the recruits, his parents are building connections and relationships with these recruits' parents. One recruit that they really built with was Jennings, who committed Michigan, which we'll hit on next. But they also Savion Hitter, who's RB1, which we're also going to hit on in the next segment. But I mean, they just did a great job. It's a big deal to have a cornerstone player like that in the fold. One unfortunate thing out of the barbecue, which it is what it is, but Carter Smith did not make it in. He had practice. He couldn't, he didn't want to miss. So he had to attend to that down in because their camps are picking up just like Michigan's camp picked up or started today. So that really is the only negative out of the weekend was Carter Smith couldn't make it. Outside of that, man, the weekend was just a huge success.
That's great, guys. And you mentioned Brody Jennings. Why don't we hit on that, because that is now our second member of the 2026 class. And how about a 4-star cornerback who went to Florida State camp? He took an unofficial visit to Miami, but he decided after barbecue at the Big House that his home was going to be the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, no, this is such an interesting commitment because one, it wasn't necessarily on our radar, right? And I think he was just offered a scholarship just a few months ago too. But anyone who wants a more in-depth breakdown on Brody Jennings, I did a recruiting breakdown Sunday night. Check that out. That's uploaded on our channel. But what's interesting here is Brody Jennings is the younger brother of Brandon Jennings. And Brandon Jennings was formerly committed to Michigan in 2020, top 100 recruit, a true monster. Literally, his nickname was Godzilla, and it was definitely earned. I mean, when you watched him on the field, he was a monster. So what happened was he flipped on National Signing Day to Maryland because if anyone remembers, 2020 was obviously not the best year for Michigan. And Maryland was when Mike Locksley joined, so he was able to persuade him. Long story short, it didn't work out, and his career hasn't been a linear path for him. It's been had a lot of ups and downs. Anyways, where I'm going at with this is bridges were not burned, and obviously, I think there is a little a little reflection where I feel like Brandon Jennings wishes he never left Michigan, and I think you can see that in Brody Jennings' commitment. And getting a player like Brody Jennings in the class already, 2026. So we now have two committed players, two blue chips, committed to 2026. And as we've talked about all summer, Michigan's intentions is to get a top 5 class for 2026. They are swinging for the fences. This is a nice get. This is a player who is very physical. He is a little raw, but he's also a sophomore. We're talking about a very young player here. So, what you see with this player is a player who can play man. He is physical. As you can see, he is a little touchy. He does need to get more polished, but he will with age. So yeah, good addition to the class and for 2026 and just a great job by Lamar Morgan, who's just crushing it with DB recruiting right now.
Yeah, and it's good to have the dominoes start to fall for 2026. You get a defensive player. You're not going to call him a cornerstone like Brady Hart, but at least the dominoes are falling. There's momentum. This is the idea of getting from a maybe around top 10 class to getting into that top 5 range, for the following year. So yeah, this is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look,
he has that fearless mentality that Michigan coaches like to find players like this.
Absolutely. And he also worked out for Lamar Morgan over the weekend. And apparently Lamar Morgan is just ecstatic about this. He's trying there's word that he's actually trying to close his DBs early. He wants to get I don't know. Lamar Morgan's on, he must be feeling himself after getting Ivan Taylor and Kanoa Winston because he apparently he's trying to get his DBs already locked up before like the new year. I mean, he's really aggressively recruiting these kids. So, shout out to him and let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah. And just a note about, I just mentioned recruiting rankings. Just a little note about recruiting rankings. I don't think Michigan tries to get in the top 10 or tries to get in the top 5. I believe that they are looking for the best fit for them. They do tend to try to get smarter players, tougher players. I'm not sure that rankings are the end all be all specifically for Michigan. Do they develop players or do they find diamonds in the rough and some of these players are ahead of their rankings? I think it's a little bit of both.
I agree, but I do know Michigan does want to recruit at a higher level. they do want to hit another caliber of player, and they're doing that. So we, like they're already starting that. We're already seeing that this summer where we're getting more top 100 guys. We went through a 2-year span, guys, where we got like one top 100 player. We were barely getting anything higher than 150. So look, there's a new approach. It's working. It's very aggressive. We're literally battling with some of the top programs from Alabama to Miami to Auburn to Texas. It's really good to see. I mean, listen, we're not going to win them all. Ohio State's a savage. I mean, I think we saw what their athletic director recently said. They have a $23 million budget. Michigan is half of that budget, by the way, in terms of NIL. And Michigan's a higher end tier 2, low end tier 1 NIL program right now. So, yeah, in Oregon, obviously, we see what Phil Knight's doing. But at the end of the day, Michigan is moving in the right direction. And even as good as it is right now, it will continue to improve because Michigan wants to continue to improve. That's what's good about it.